How you guys doing today? I happen to have my round 2 locker room video here, and this is going to be against the New York Charmanders. I'm actually recording this the day before the game, and this is going to be a little bit of a shorter video, probably filled with less insight and more kind of explanation as to why I've chosen what I've chosen. Because I actually, excuse me while I'm looking on my other monitor, blatantly cheating for a second here. I actually ended up, doing a lot of this, thinking about it, kind of before or immediately right after that game happened, because I was like still in competitive mode. I was like, what can I do, and I looked at the draft sheet, and then I kind of looked at my options, and I realized that I have two probably of the most versatile Pokemon in draft format, and that really helps me so much here. A lot of my other mons do happen to be pretty versatile in what they can do as well. I mean, Starmie's got a lot of options, Gengar's got a great amount of options, Medicham has a lot of flex room in draft as well. But the two mons I'm referring to are Silvally and Smeargle, which can basically adapt in any way, shape, or form to what I need them to do. Silvally can be either physical or special. It can be any type it wants to be. Smeargle gets access to every stinking move under the sun. I mean, you could use Dark Void, but it fails now. So I'm just saying you can if you want to, but that's not the point here. The point here is we're looking at the New York Charmanders, who for their Mega has Mega Sableye, which is our bouncer. And the other thing you'll be noticing as well on the New York Charmanders is Kieran Black is not a spinner, Amoonguss is not a spinner, Entei's not a spinner, Florges is not a spinner, Registeel is not a spinner, Hitmonchan is a spinner, but albeit not a very common one. I'd honestly be really surprised to see Hitmonchan as a spinner in this matchup. It would be something. Rotom Wash, definitely not a spinner. Tornadus, I'm unsure about Defog on this thing. I don't think it gets it. I don't know if it's like one of those weird mons that gets it on level up. But if it is, hey, that would be some desperate times to kind of see that come through. And then I know for a fact Hoopa's not a spinner. So, to my knowledge, there is a Magic Bouncer and a Hitmonchan as a spinner with the potential of Tornadus being a defogger. Not a lot of hazard control here, but that is definitely the most used Magic Bouncer in the game. So that is something to keep in mind. And my opponent is probably going to be thinking, hey, you know what? With as little hazard control as I have, and my opponent having potential for Stealth Rock and Spikes on Ferrothorn, as well as Stealth Rock and Sticky Web and whatever I want to on Smeargle, basically. I need to, like, Mega Sableye is probably one of my more valuable things. Especially because both of my Megas... Wait, where'd my Zygarde go? There you go, buddy. Let's move you over here. Okay, I was like, I'm missing a mon. Both of my OU mons, I should say, are weak to Fairy, which is a little unfortunate. I do have something in the form of Gengar for Fairies, which is fine. I have Charizard as a resist. I have Ferrothorn, as long as I don't have to worry about, Fairy Fire coverage would probably be okay there. Fairy Fighting is understandably, I don't know. It's okay. I don't think I'm relying too much on Ferrothorn for this matchup is what I'm looking at. So, if you at least when it comes to deflecting fairies, because all we got is Registeel. We have, excuse me, I was looking above Registeel. Yeah, Registeel's Fairy type. No, right above Registeel on the other side is Florges. So, in the Florges versus Ferrothorn matchup, Florges doesn't generally have anything to touch Ferrothorn, so it usually ends up getting forced out, which is absolutely fine. The consideration for Gyro Ball is there, / whether or not I'm even bringing it was there for a little bit. But I guess in terms of to kind of jump into why I would need a Fairy on my team, since Fairy seems to be kind of, it seems to be pretty good against my team, but in terms of my opponent, both of their OUs are weak to it as well. Their spinner doesn't like it, and I think that's pretty much it. So for the same reason that they would need fairies for my team, I would need a fairy for their team, and it's for that slot that we're actually going to go ahead and move this big guy into the circle. There's going to be our fairy Silvally. I've decided on a physical set, I believe, with I think I don't know if I'm going SD Flame Charge or if I'm going like Parting Shot, just like whatever, like a utility kind of thing. I've already built it on my DS, but I don't feel like really pulling it up, to be honest. I just know Fairy Silvally is, I think that would be pretty valuable here. I think I'm also running, I'm either running Ice Fang or Flame, no, I'm running Iron Head for Florges because a multi-attack into an Iron Head after a Swords Dance I feel like would be pretty valuable. And I think I might be running Fire Fang for Registeel as well. That is something to consider. Or, no. So it would be multi-attack, Iron Head, and I'm thinking Fire Fang as well for potentially Abomasnow as a consideration as well. I don't have anything to hit Tornadus with, but Silvally really can't do everything, and I'm more worried about the stuff slower than it that I have the potential to flinch with Iron Head and get some serious damage off of, and then immediately Parting Shot out on as soon as possible. The main reason I want it is for Mega Sableye as well, so that's, you know, I wouldn't say it's the most reliable answer, but it is an answer. I've seen how much the calc does. It's really not that bad. I don't know whether or not it's going to be rolling a fully physically defensive one. Given my Megas, my Megas, I keep saying my Megas. Given my OUs, it could be that, you know, that exact thing, so it is something to keep in mind, whether or not Silvally's going to be doing too much here. But if I was to run 3 attacks Swords Dance or like 3 attacks Parting Shot, that's kind of a big deal there. Parting Shot might not be a consideration just because of Magic Bounce, but that's what we got. We got Fairy Silvally right there. For our next slot that I've looked at, I've noticed that Zygarde, as long as Kyurem Black is not Scarfed, puts in an incredible amount of work. Like, I'm talking huge work. So Amoonguss gets eaten alive by this thing. I'm pretty sure a Banded 1,000 Arrows, 2-hit KOs, I think even physically defensive variants. Entei, not even worth considering. Florges is a special defensive mon, does not like this thing at all. Registeel, you know, I'm a freaking ground type. The best thing it could probably do is respond with a Toxic or Seismic Toss. Not really going to end up switching it. Hitmonchan, I'm pretty sure after Rocks, with like offensive variants, just ends up getting straight bop, just one shot. I'm pretty sure I remember looking at these calcs, and it does some serious damage to it, so Hitmonchan's not coming in on this thing. Abomasnow is probably my opponent's only hard answer to that, but Medicham comes in, you know, fairly easily as a response as well. I don't even feel like I'm overburdening Zygarde looking at the matchup just because Zygarde just handles it so naturally. Against Mega Sableye, I think I'm looking at either a solid 2-hit KO or like a very close 3-hit KO. I'm not 100% on that, but I know everything, pretty much everything except for Abomasnow is a 2-hit KO. Guaranteed. So Zygarde is super valuable. The only, like I said, the only immediate threat is an Ice Shard from Abomasnow. And a Scarf Kyurem Black. Kyurem Black's a really big threat to this team, but there are a few things that I can use to deal with it. Fairy Silvally has a decent amount of bulk, or it shouldn't necessarily matter that it's a Fairy Silvally, but the fact that it's a Silvally with, you know, base 95 HP and defense and special defense, you know, just uninvested, that's really good still. So if push comes to shove, I probably could take a hit from it, and respond with a multi-attack or something along those lines. You know, we'll see how that plays out. I'm not too immediately worried by putting a Zygarde on, because I do have some other leeway here. So, with that in mind, Zygarde the boy wins himself a slot next to Silvally right there. Fantastic. Okay, so my third slot, after looking at it as well, how many fire resist does my opponent have, as I'm kind of looking at this next part. So Sableye doesn't really resist it too well. Kyurem Black also does not resist it. Amoonguss definitely doesn't like it. Registeel doesn't like it. Abomasnow doesn't like it. There's a few fire weaknesses here. Entei, you know, I could go for an Air Slash. I'm ultimately looking at Charizard right here in case we were not made privy to that. I do have a Charizard, and it is something on my mind. So Florges, I'm pretty sure could take a Fire Blast or two here or there. Rotom Wash, with the set that I'm running, is not necessarily a safe switch-in. And then Tornadus could go for a Tailwind, but again, with the set that I'm planning on running, doesn't have a reliable offense unless it's running a physical set. And then Hoopa's kind of a toss-up, honestly. If it's a Scarf one, that is something that I need to scout for Scarf Hoopa. That was another consideration on my mind as well. But the set of Charizard that I'm looking at running is actually Z Sunny Day, which gives you +1 speed. Going to be very important in this matchup because it means I'll be able to outspeed the potential Scarf Kyurem Black, the potential Scarf Hoopa, and, you know, having access to its hidden ability of Solar Power means that this thing is a self-sustaining truck of fuck. Next stop, my opponent's team. A Sun-boosted Flamethrower after Rocks, I'm pretty sure one-shots most anything on my opponent's team, except for Entei, which is probably a 2-hit KO, and except for Florges, which is pretty much just naturally bulky. But Registeel, gone. Hitmonchan, more than likely gone. I don't know about the Assault Vest variant. Lots of damage. If I get a burn, probably gone next turn. Rotom Wash, Flamethrower into Solar Beam is not happening. And I don't think Abomasnow will necessarily be switching into Charizard to change the weather, because you'll just lose a Mon at that point and just open it up for Zygarde. So, Tornadus, as I was mentioning before, if it tries to go for Hurricane in the Sun, it's actually down to a coin flip as opposed to 70%, which already is kind of shaky as well. But relying on your main offense as a coin flip, not his cup of tea, probably. Hoopas do run T-Bolt. I do know this, so that is something to kind of look out for. If it is a Scarf variant and it does sneak in before I manage to see Sunny Day, that could be a pretty scary thing to deal with. But outside of that, I really do like Charizard here with Z Sunny Day and probably, what, Flamethrower, Air Slash, Solar Beam, you know, kind of bread and butter Zard Y set, except for lacking Focus Blast and Dragon Pulse potentially. But I think with the Solar Power, I can probably compensate in a lot of those matchups for, you know, that coverage that I'm missing out on. Cool thing about Draft. So I didn't use a Z-move last game, but I think in this game, not only do I deem it pretty viable, I actually think it might be kind of essential. In that I would outspeed the Kyurem Black with +1 speed and the Hoopa with +1 speed, since Charizard's base 100 and the other guys are less than that. So it's for that reason that I'm actually picking Charizard for my next slot, which is all fine and dandy. The next one, I'm going to leave the best boy for last. I'm actually going to jump ahead a little bit. Now, the one thing I am kind of worried about, let me see. Okay, so here we go. I think my next slot is going to be Medicham. For reasons mentioned before, Medicham being extremely versatile, I can run priority in this matchup now because I don't have to worry about Tapu Lele. I do have to worry about a potential Scarf Kyurem Black now, so Fake Out and Bullet Punch are definitely viable and possibly recommended options for my opponent's offense. I do have to worry about Mega Sableye a lot. I don't have anything to touch it whatsoever, and anytime Mega Medicham comes in, if Mega Sableye is still alive, that will be its immediate #1 use. His Mega completely checks and or counters my Mega. No, I would say straight up counter, because I can't touch it, it can burn me, and it immediately makes me lose all of my momentum. So finding an opportunity to Mega this thing will be a little bit tricky, but I'll see what I can do there. So outside of that, pretty good against Kyurem Black, Fake Out and a Bullet Punch. Amoonguss does not like a Zen Headbutt. Entei could probably respond with a Banded Extreme Speed, but I could either High Jump Kick or I could Zen Headbutt. Florges, absolutely not loving a Poison Jab or a Zen Headbutt, depending on my set. Registeel, you know, High Jump Kick. Hitmonchan, Zen Headbutt. Abomasnow, High Jump Kick. Rotom Wash, I really don't think appreciates a High Jump Kick either. Tornadus, I wouldn't really stay in on a Tornadus. And a Hoopa being Psychic Ghost, I definitely would not want to fuck with that either. So, depending on how many of these Mons my opponent has, in terms of if he has Mega Sableye and Hoopa, I need to be careful with how I use Medicham, and I need to rely on my other Mons before first. But if he happens to bring a little bit more bulk, and he kind of sees the same things I am, in that if he goes a little bit more defensive, he's actually kind of putting himself at a disadvantage. I think he actually has to kind of match my tempo in terms of how offensive I'm going, which is an important thing to note in this matchup, because the more offensive player is probably going to be the one that comes out on top here. So whether or not I see all of these defensive Mons in the form of Amoonguss and Florges and Registeel, and, you know, Rotom Wash and Mega Sableye, there's a lot of, you know, good defense potential in there, but how much are we actually going to see of it is going to be my question. And that's going to directly relate to how reliable Mega Medicham is. So I'm bringing it. I'm a little apprehensive about how well it's going to do, but I still think it would be a mistake to leave it behind, given all of the options that it could have. I just have to be careful in how I use it. So that's going to be my 4th pick for this matchup. My 5th pick, which is going to be a little bit of a riskier one, but I do have a ×4 Stealth Rock weakness, and he does have a Registeel. So these are things to be careful about, and the one thing that does switch in on a Registeel's Thunder Wave and Stealth Rock is a Zapdos with Defog. A Registeel is not threatening me immediately too much as a Zapdos. I think the worst thing it could honestly do is probably Stone Edge or Toxic, but it can't paralyze me. I can pivot on it with Volt Switch if I want to run Volt Switch on this thing. I don't remember if I am. I think I'm opting for a more defensive build on this one as well. I think I ran a straight up offensive one, but I think this one is probably going to end up being a, I think we're running a Calm variant on this one, and this is for, I forget what this is for. I think this might be for Abomasnow or Rotom Wash or Tornadus, or Hoopa. I think it's for those 4 that I'm running a specially defensive one with Defog. Plus, if I catch either Kyurem or Hoopa on the switch with the discharge and I paralyze it, that's actually going to end up being even better because the speed is going to be really important in this matchup. My opponent has next to no priority outside of Entei's Extreme Speed and Hitmonchan's Mach Punch and Abomasnow's Ice Shard. But those are like offensive moves. I mean, I know Tornadus does have access to Prankster, but a lot of these moves in themselves are not really boosted by any sort of thing. There's no like Swords Dance into Extreme Speed or, you know, like Nasty Plot in a Vacuum Wave or something like that. It's just banded with Entei. You know, a Hitmonchan is probably just going to be boosted by Iron Fist, and Abomasnow can't be Mega, so it's just going to be a stock Ice Shard. This is going to be a decent amount of priority floating around, but really the name of the game is probably just going to be speed control in general. And it's for this reason that we bring Techie McTecker to the field, who's probably going to be, I'm going to argue, the star of the show in this matchup. Because remember what I said about Smeargle being, you know, this versatile of a Mon, but, you know, for as many hazards I have, there is an opponent that has a Magic Bouncer. So, you think, okay, shit, he's going to set up the I'm going to set up the hazards, but I don't want him to bounce them back. And he's thinking, he's got hazards, I'm going to go ahead and bounce them back. Now, think about this, if you will. Magic Guard, or Magic Bounce, does happen to be an ability. So, what if I told you at this point that there was a Mon that had access to Stealth Rock, Sticky Web, and Skill Swap, and Spore? Yeah, you're looking at him. I could Skill Swap on turn 1. Basically, anything outside of Entei guarantees me the Sticky Web setup. And the only thing that has the potential to spin on it is Hitmonchan. Tornadus, as I mentioned, I don't know whether or not it defogs. I will definitely have learned at this point. I just don't feel like looking it up right now. And if I'm able to get the skill swap off on the Mega Sableye on the potential turn that it Will-O-Wisp as well, I could score a bonus burn, and then the Mega Sableye has to switch in order to get Magic Bounce back, which the important part about that is I'm going to get another turn for free hazards. And in that, all I really need is Web and Rocks. If I get something to sleep, it helps me out even more. Outside of that, I'm not immediately worried. I really do think Web is so important in this matchup. The 2 Mons that I was mildly scared of being Scarfed, Kyurem Black and Hoopa, are both grounded, which means that without those, they will definitely both be lower than base 100 speed. Very important for Medicham, very important for Charizard. There will also be slower than 95, which is very important for Zygarde and Silvally as well, since those are going to be running straight-up offensive, faster spreads. Everything on my opponent's team is just going to end up being all around slower. Undoubtedly, it is slower for the most part, except for Tornadus and Rotom Wash. A Scope Rotom Wash, I feel, could kind of throw a little bit of things into a loop here, and the Tornadus, I feel like, could also as well... yeah, that thing can switch into Web, so that's not something I'm really looking forward to. But in terms of everything else on my opponent's team, it is affected by Web, and that is something to look forward to. So I need to make sure that my opponent sees a Smeargle, doesn't necessarily see the Smeargle in the lead slot, but will be under the impression that I will want to lead with it, and will lead off. I really desperately want my opponent to lead off with Sableye, so he can Mega. I can skill swap on turn 1, steal the Magic Bounce, and at that point I am guaranteed every single one of my hazards. And every turn that I have those hazards, I essentially hold the match already in check. Because nothing wants to switch into Zygarde, nothing wants to switch into Medicham, nothing really wants to switch into Charizard if it gets a setup turn, which if I'm able to get the Spore off, I'm going straight to Charizard, and I'm going to start punching holes, although it's Medicham's job to technically punch stuff. Whatever, you get what I mean with Charizard, though. Like, Charizard just needs the one turn, and it can just immediately go to town. My opponent doesn't really seem to have a lot of phasers either, so that is something to keep in mind. It's all just a matter of how well that skill swapping turn goes down. Outside of that, I think I'm still going to be pretty okay. The one thing to consider with Smeargle is what leads I would not like. So the leads that I would not be a fan of are probably, I would say Amoonguss, but I'd still be okay with getting the webs up. Honestly, the thing I would like to do with Amoonguss, if I was to lead off with Smeargle, is go into Zygarde, because Zygarde actually has Sleep Talk on it for that exact reason. I had actually been running Sleep Talk on it before, but, you know, I actually didn't end up having to change much. I think I just went down from Jolly to Adamant just because I wanted the extra stopping power under webs. Entei is something to also consider as well, because if it goes for Sacred Fire and gets the burn, then I ultimately only get one hazard up and I don't do anything else. And then if it goes Sacred Fire, doesn't burn, then goes into Extreme Speed, I also only get one hazard as well. So Amoonguss is kind of an iffy one. It really depends on what I'm feeling at the moment, what my opponent's mons happen to be. If he leads off with Entei, then there is that option, so I'm not really liking that. I think Florges or Registeel are pretty likely not to be leads. Florges just completely invites me in. Registeel, if I try to put it to sleep, he might as well go into Amoonguss, and then, you know, kind of goes from there. Hitmonchan could just end up Mach Punching once, getting me down to my sash, and then I ultimately put it to sleep, and then get one off, or Hitmonchan just goes to Amoonguss again, rinse and repeat. Abomasnow, I feel like what it could also do is it could lead. I could get, you know, knocked down to 1 from a Blizzard to my sash and then just die to the hail, so I wouldn't stay in on Abomasnow. Rotom Wash, unless it's Scarfed, is going to basically let me get the Spore up. Unless it happens, if it's like if it's a slower variant, like I'm thinking it will be, in most cases. You know how Rotom Wash is. If it is a slower Rotom Wash, I can go and get that Spore off, kind of go from there. Tornadus, I'm not really liking either because of Taunt. Taunt is a big possibility there. And then Hoopa could Trick as well. But ultimately, I want my opponent to lead off with Sableye because on paper, that is the safest lead for him. He leads off with Sableye and he says, you're not getting your hazards up here. Plus, when a Mon is in there as a normal Mon, it has to Mega immediately. So I'm going to stay in, and that's what I'm going to do. And on paper, I really like it. It seems really reliable, but I'm not sure how well it's going to work. I think ultimately my success in this next game is entirely based on how well that skill swap play slash that skill swap threat works out. I'm kind of hoping my opponent does not do the research and realizes that that is a possibility, because I could either skill swap or I could Gastro Acid. I think skill swap could be kind of interesting as well in that I could skill swap, you know, something useful, so potentially, I don't know, like Levitate it from Rotom Wash or something like that. I can't really think of any other useful abilities. Oh, if I skill swapped Prankster from Tornadus, that could be something as well. But, you know, it's really circumstantial. So, this is the lineup I got. This is what I'm feeling. And I will upload this very shortly after the actual match happens, but before the actual match ends up going up on my channel. So I think that's kind of most of the discussion I really need to have. I realized that I started out at the beginning like, hey, you know, I wasn't going to talk that much, but actually ended up talking more than I did the previous locker room video. But I kind of wanted to, I have a battle plan more in mind as opposed to a set, opposed to a set team that's revolved around synergy. The battle plan is definitely going to be relying around Smeargle. And that's pretty much what I've got there is kind of the big thing. It's more just a Hail Mary. It's an unstoppable force of the hazards versus the immovable object, which is supposed to be, you know, the Mega Sableye. So we'll see how well this turns out. I'm really looking forward to it, and I will see you guys hopefully at the draft stream. If I have not seen you at the draft stream, then, you know, you guys can watch the draft game immediately after. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.